Hello lovely people and welcome to this Halloween collaboration. This is a vampire themed, but this time we each sent each other something to use for the doll. So let's see what Shelby K has sent to me. Among the wonderful items, I really love these minty colours and the black lace, so I'm going to be using those as my colour palette. I absolutely love this sparkly one and also the cobweb material. I definitely have to use that. I decided to use this Scara Scream. She's in desperate need of some love, but the skin tone is perfect. I clean her up with acetone and scraping out the remaining hair plugs before giving her a good clean with soap and water. I was originally quite keen to use the hair that Shelby actually sent to me, but she just didn't suit the doll, so I chose this super lovely multicoloured yarn. I've cut it to the same length and separated them into the different colour groupings just to make rerouting a little bit easier. I've got my hot water bottle, my rerouting tool and my stabby pointy thing to help me make new holes and existing ones bigger. And I've drawn on some guides as I'll be making a new parting and adding a fringe as well. And as usual, I'm starting with the hairline before filling in the middle sections. The main difference is when using yarn, you can actually miss a few of the existing holes as this fills out a lot more. So as usual, you're going to be placing your yarn or your hair within the rerouting tool. Mine is just an embroidery needle which I've snipped the end off and placing it into the handle. Once I'm happy with all the wool and all the sections, you can see I've actually kept all of these sections separate, as there's going to be a main long section at the back, two space spun pigtails and also the fringe. I keep their head under this hot water bottle as it's going to keep the head nice and squishy, and this will help me when it comes to making sure that the glue is reaching all the aspects and all the areas inside the head. I'm using OOAK glue. It's nice and strong, it dries really quite nice and quickly as well, and it's quite thin as it goes in, so it's really a lot easier than some of the other glues I've used in the past, making sure it can actually reach all of those bits inside the head. I leave this to dry, and then once I'm happy with it, I can actually test a little section just to see if it is actually holding. If I was going to be leaving the yarn as it is as part of the hairstyle, then I wouldn't have even bothered gluing it. It's so securely in the hair plugs. But as I'm going to be brushing this out later, I do need to make sure it's all checked. So the next stage is unraveling all the strands. I'm using this wooden knitting tool just to help me out, and this is quite a painstaking aspect, but I find it does help when it comes to minimizing as much wastage when it comes to brushing the yarn out. Once that's all done, you can see I've actually started straightening in sections as I go. I added this step again just to try and keep down that wastage as much as possible. So once I've unravelled all the hair yarns, I use my straightener to straighten small sections. The wool will actually come out at this stage. It's just the natural way that the strands are connected and the strength of them. Sometimes different yarns will have different lengths that they will actually break at. So I go through all the different sections, making sure that I'm doing them in relatively small chunks. And then once I'm happy with that, I will go in with my pet brush and brush out all of the bits. I kind of do this in the same way that I would brush curly hair, so starting at the bottom and then working my way up. Once I've done that, I actually straighten it again. And again, I'm just keeping all of the sections separate just to make my life easier later. And I'm really happy with how the colours look and how the partings look here as well. I've heated the doll's head up with my hairdryer, and I'm actually adding it back to the doll base because I'm going to find it easier when it comes time to doing the hair. I did actually swap out the hands. I discovered I had these hands in the same colour tone that actually had longer nails, and I think that much more suits the vampire theme I'm going for. I don't have a specific pattern for this kind of leotard jumpsuit, so I've actually gone with the cling film wrapped around the doll, and then ideally this would have been masking tape, but I only had packing tape wrapped around in the design that you want, and then I'm just drawing on with a permanent marker the different shape that I want the actual final piece to be. And the idea is that once you cut it off, you can actually cut different darts and shapes so that it lays flat, and then you can place it onto your material. The benefit I had is that the material that I'm using is actually stretchy, so all I needed to do is to get the general shape for the front and the back. I have to remember that I haven't included any seams allowance in here, so that's something I need to make sure that I include. Once that was on the doll, I decided it needed some nice little slightly wider winged sleeves, created out of the same material, just quite simply sewn here, and then once they're placed on, I can sew them in place. The sleeves are going to help hold the leotard into the right position, and I can just sew this directly onto this spare base that I'm using as my mannequin for the project. So one of the main things I wanted to include was a little corset, and I've got this lovely fake leather material that's actually patterned. You can't see it too well in the video. I've cut it to shape, longer at the front with the shape going under the bust and then shorter at the back. I've also put some UV resin around the edges just to kind of give it a more finished look. And I'm using my lovely stabby tool to make the existing holes. And I have this fantastic yarn that almost reminds me of cobwebs and spider webs, and I thought it would be perfect to create a bit more of like a Halloween-y vampire look with the corset. And I want to leave those quite long, trailing over the dress as well. This Make a Monster torso is great for helping me to sort out the laces for the sides. I've just pinned it into place around the back and just making sure that the laces all fit nice and snugly before I add it to the full outfit later. You can kind of see the pattern on the surface here. I'm going to add some Velcro or a hook or a popper to the back so it'll be more easy to add on. So with the shoes, I actually didn't need to do too much to these. I've just repainted them black and added a bit of silver colour over the top as well before glossing them. And then I threaded some elastic thread with these lovely beads in the signature colours before wrapping them into, sewing them into the edges. And then I just added and glued down some washi paper so that I could hide a lot of the plastic edge threading. It's at this stage that I realise something doesn't look quite right with the shoes. Yes, I have not got a left and a right pair. I have got both right size shoes. So I have to delve into my box and hope against hope that I actually had two pairs of these shoes and not that they actually came as a mistake with one of the dolls. But luckily I do find the matching one, so I'm able to repeat the whole process with this particular shoe. Once that's complete, I know I want to add some sort of embellishment, and I was so keen to use these little plastic roses somewhere in the design. I actually didn't end up using them at all. They just didn't really fit with what I was going for and with the overall look. But I have these lovely little purple gems, and I thought that there would be a nice little splash of a different type of colour on the design. So again, I'm just using my UV glue, which dries so quickly and so strong, and adding it to the top of the shoe just to give a little bit more colour and detail. we come to the dress section, and it's the skirt. I wanted to create a nice big poofy layered skirt using all of this fantastic material, and I'm just deciding what colours I'm going to be using and in what tiers. I've got this fantastic taffeta material, and I've made this high-low underskirt with some of the lace that Shelby sent, and that's going to help create a lot of poofiness. I created the next layer, again using some different lace and this lovely minty colour, and I added some more of the netting on the inside to give it some poof. However, once I'd done it, I decided I did not like it at all. It wasn't at all what I was going for. I wanted this to be a much more kind of soft, romantic, Victorian style era, so I've made this pattern for a high-low dress skirt section instead. Once I created the first one, I then repeated the process with a smaller one that's going to be the next tier up, and cut out my pieces. Again, I've used different types of lace that was sent. I really like how it sparks that minty colour, it really brings it out, and I absolutely love this cobweb section. I've stuck to that colour palette to create these underskirts to create a nice poofy effect, but I've used this elasticated thread so it's a lot easier to put on underneath the material. I'm going to layer it up like a lovely cake before lightly pinning them in place so that I don't lose that elasticated benefit, and then sewing those all together. I decided as well I'm not going to use the high-low underskirt as it just doesn't fit the design that I've gone for now. I kept the two skirts separate as there's so much poofiness going on in between them. I'm going to sew them individually to the existing leotard to make sure that they actually stay in the place that I want. I've got this lovely blue velvet, which I'm going to do as a top layer, sewing that directly to the leotard as well, and that's going to create a nice transition point between the blue and the cobweb design. I'm using these white clear glass beads just to add a little bit of decoration around the edge of this section of the skirt. It's going to help disguise the pattern of the pinking shears, as I didn't want to do a hemline on this, as I wanted it to lay quite flat. And now we can essentially thread on the different layers of the skirt, sewing them in place. I've added on a couple of embellishments, these black hearts and also these little pearl sections, just to add a little bit of extra detail. I decided I really wanted to use this white sparkly material, and what's a vampire without a cape? So the first thing I did was created this high collar that's double layered before turning it inside out. This is going to make sure it can stand up quite nicely. I wanted that really exaggerated vampire high collar. I then sew a really basic rectangle, but I've actually included a metal craft wire section along the bottom just so it has a little bit of weight, but also it means it can be moulded for the design. I've sewn in the creases using a ladder stitch and also added a hook and a little bit of detailing, a nice little turquoise cross and a bow just to tie it in with the overall colour as well. And now comes time for the face up. I've already sprayed the face twice for the first coat with Mr. Super Clear. Again, whenever I'm using Mr. Super Clear, I'm using a specific face mask and doing this outside. It needs to be a very well ventilated area. Just make sure you're always following the instructions. I've got all my pencils and soft pastels laid out next to me, and I'm just adding some light colouring to the cheeks. I don't want her to be too flushed as she's supposed to be a vampire, but I do want to add some colour and some depth in there. I used a white pencil first to draw the outlines of the eye shape to make sure I got what I wanted, but I'm really quite firm with the idea of what I want the eyes to look like for this particular face up, so I'm pretty happy going straight in with the black to get those shapes that I'm looking for. Once I'm happy with the overall shape of the eye and the iris and the size of the eye, I can go in with a few more details and lines around. And then what I quite like to do is using white, darker colours and pink is add into kind of a waterline and into the edges as well. I love the combination of purple and this lovely minty colour together, and also I know from Shelby's other designs that they've done on her one-of-a-kind dolls that there's quite a few purple-eyed creations in there, so I thought it would be quite nice to make this vampire purple-eyed as well. I'm just making sure I'm going in darker at the top of the eye where it meets the eyelid, and then lighter sections underneath. I want to create quite a heavy looked eye, but also quite soft, so I'm going to be using just my pencils and pastels for this. I'm just using a kneady rubber to remove any sections that I don't like, and adding some nice softening around the eye with black. My usual style for the lips is to keep them quite soft and quite delicate, but I want this one to have some big, pouty, red lips. So I'm just going to go around the existing shape of the lips and to create some depth with some pastel colours. And then going straight in with this lovely dark kind of mulberry colour to create a nice line around. I kind of want to create much more of a rounded, pouty look than the face mould already has. And then I want it to be lighter in the middles to create, again, that kind of really voluminous effect. As I want to be drawing on fangs later, I'm just going to add some black to the centre of the lips, so it looks as though the mouth is slightly open. I start out trying to do this with the pencil, but you just can't quite get into all the cracks, so I'm using some of the black pastels as well. Next comes the nightmare aspect of trying to match the eyes together, and I think I'm quite happy with the overall direction that she's looking in and the way I've been able to match those different colours. Add a few more blue and purple accents to the eyeshadow area. I've added a small amount of pink to the end of the nose and the forehead before I go in with the white pencil just to add some highlights areas to the eye and around the eye shape. And now comes the horrible bit, eyebrows. I'm terrible at doing them, I hate doing them. I'm going in with a very light colour first that matches the hairstyle colour before going over with eyeshadows to kind of fill it in, and then I just go adding some hopefully light hairs using black in between and also some white in between as well. When it comes to adding a little bit of blue into the whites of the eyes, it helps to add a little bit of shadow but keeping the colours nice and clean. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to try and keep the eyelashes quite nice and light and fluffy. So normally I would go over this with the acrylic or gouache paint, but I'm just going to keep them quite small and light with the pencil. And now comes time for the fangs. I find my smallest pencil, but no, they're absolutely humongous. They are not what I'm going for at all. Still no, it's a good thing MSC lets you wipe them off. You can actually see how happy I am when I manage to get the fangs looking the way that I want them to. Yes, what a nightmare. The only bit of paint I'm actually using on the eyes is this metallic purple. I want to add a few lines into the iris just to make sure that it kind of pops up a little bit more and you can really see that different type of colour, even though I'm going to add on the white eye shines later as well. I use an extremely small nail art tool to get some nice little circles in the eye shines, and this really does make the eyes come to life, I think. And now there's only one final thing to do and the face up is done. I got this tip from Stitch Quick Witch and it is one of my favourite little hacks. I'm using UV resin to create the nice glossy eye shine as well as doing it on the lips as well. And it's come out so shiny. So this is always one of my favourite bits when we can finally release the hair and I can remind myself how all the colours work together. After a quick brush, I separate out the sections that I don't want to include in the buns. I make the two sections for the hairspace buns a little bit tighter, and I remove some of the hair that goes around the edge that's going to be braided, and this is going to be creating a detail later on. I trim away the excess hair so the buns aren't too big before using a small elastic to tie the buns in place. I braid the excess as this is going to be tied around the base of the bun. I also decide to create a braid that's going to go over the headband section behind the fringe. And the braids that I separated out have gone over the bun, kind of like a cage. I'm using this lovely black lace to tie a bow around the base of the one bun. It's then going to wrap around the braid over the fringe and do the same the other side. I trim the fringe into the shape that I want and use my straighteners to coax it into the right shape against the head and into some side curls. The benefit of yarn is it does hold shapes really, really well. To create some nice soft curls around the edges, I'm spraying the different sections with some strong hold hairspray before winding the hair around a metal round profile file that I have and using the straighteners to then heat the curl on the metal file. Once that's heated enough, I very carefully remove it from the file as the file itself can be quite warm, and then we have the cute tight ringlet, and I continue this around into the small sections around the face and then also around the back. I do decide to only curl the ends so that I can keep the overall length and the design that I want it to be. I'm really happy with how all the curls came out. It really suits the aesthetic that I was hoping to achieve. I've actually put this ribbon around the top and I've applied some heat because I wanted the fringe to lay a little bit flatter. A few final tweaks and she's all ready to get dressed. I made these tights as well as I felt it helped with the colour tones and to really help to set off all the different colours that I chose. I hope this doll suits the prompts that I got given by Shelby K. I was going for a very soft, romantic, gothic look. I made these tiny black bow earrings by just gluing on the embellishments onto some spare pins I had, and they can just get stabbed straight into the ears. I only had time for the quickest of photo shoots as this little vampire has to travel over to America to reach her new home. I made sure she didn't move too much by making this little coffin shaped base, and I hope Shelby enjoys the little goodies that I included. Okay, so this doll is gone. Did anyone notice something? Yep, that's right. The corset.
I've left it here. Not to worry, it's gonna get posted and it will probably beat her there. I'm so sorry, Shelby. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I'm sewing a popper on to make it easier to add, and then yes, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot to include that. But my box arrived and I was so excited. It's got so many amazing goodies in. I absolutely love the stickers, and the sweeties will be highly appreciated. I spotted this little picture and quite quickly realised that it was a picture of the doll, so made sure I put that to the side so it was still a surprise. And here he is. He's so pretty, is so cute. I can't believe the hair is really nice and super poofy. I can see from the picture it needs to be restyled a little bit. The little eye ring is lovely, and I'm so pleased with the materials that they chose to use. I hoped they would choose the one that they used for the shirt, and it looks amazing. Welcome, Caspian. And oh my gosh, this cute little staff as well. Again, I was under the gun a little bit to get the video ready, so I only managed to take a couple of pictures of the lovely Caspian. And here we have all the wonderful dolls together, Shelby K and Summoning Dragon Illustrated. Please go over to their channels and check out their videos. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon.